Back in the 2018 midterms, Brian Kemp, Republican, who had been the Secretary of State of Georgia at that point, tasked with overseeing the election that he was running in, won that election and became governor of Georgia under incredibly unfortunate circumstances. Unfortunate because of his actions, where he presided over voter purges and a variety of other measures of voter suppression. And now we're finding out that at the time, he had been emailing with some of his campaign staffers and effectively gloating about how successfully they were rigging the election in his favor. In September 2017, then Secretary of State Kemp emailed with campaign advisors about a media report discussing efforts to correct a, quote, string of problems with county officials' attempts to challenge the registration of hundreds of voters. The report concluded that, quote, the errors may have violated federal law. Was he concerned about his potential violation of federal law? He responded by congratulating his campaign team, writing, quote, good work. This story is so complex, folks will not make it all the way through it. A top campaign staffer, David Dove, agreed that the article, quote, won't help draw eyeballs.
Oh yeah, our crimes are so convoluted that people don't need to worry about it. I mean, they're in part right.
Yeah.
I mean, Kemp, like, he's gotten away with so much illegal activity, lies about voter suppression. It was ridiculous how much Stacey Abrams was the better candidate when running against him, and he was still rewarded by the people of Georgia.
This is one of those instances of, we continue to see, we've seen the reality of it. We talk about smoke-filled rooms and people don't think they exist, but we continue to see, and the veil keeps getting pulled. And we see it again. We talk about voter suppression, but oh, that's totally fake. We don't need any Voter Rights Act. We can strip that because who cares? It doesn't happen anymore. Remember that argument? We're talking about, we don't need this Voter Rights Act anymore because everyone's following the rules and we're just gonna let them go ahead and self-police themselves. That doesn't make any sense. But we do hear about voter fraud all the time from conservatives. Voter fraud, hey, you voted fraud, hey, they're voting for a dead person. Hey, they don't live in that district. Hey, they're doing that. But the people who consistently get caught with the voter fraud many times are conservatives and also get caught with voter suppression. So if you push enough voter fraud, you can do more voter suppression. It's just a matter of messaging. Democrats need to, after this type of thing, it came forward and the email went out. If I said, good job, thanks for the voter suppression. And this voter, and the fact that we're doing it isn't gonna catch many eyeballs. That should be said every time there's an election. I don't care if it's 10, 12 years from now, because guess what they've been saying for decades? Voter fraud, voter fraud, voter fraud, Democrats voter fraud, Democrats voter fraud. It doesn't have to be true, it just has to be said a million times. So how about we say the truth a million times? Hey, voter suppression, voter suppression, voter suppression, voter suppression. Conservatives, voter suppression. Republicans, voter suppression. Say it in every ad, say it every time you get on MSNBC, say it every time you go on Fox, say it every time you have a town hall. Voter suppression, voter suppression. And eventually people are gonna go, oh my God, I'm so tired of hearing about conservatives and their voter suppression. But it's in their head now, and it's all they can think about. It's just a matter of saying it because it's true.
Well, that would require the Democrats to be decent at messaging, and also the fact that voter fraud is a disinformation campaign that compels people to come out. Voter suppression can also make people feel defeated and like the system doesn't work for them. So it's a more complex messaging battle than the voter fraud one, which is a conspiracy theory that just allows for disinformation to spread like a virus.
Yeah, and look, for a long time, I've wanted the Democrats to run in a sustained way against the Republican war on democracy in the form of voter suppression, as well as with Trump, a very individual desire for foreign interference. The issue is that it is harder for the Democrats to position themselves as the moral superiors in this area when they're gleefully talking about the possibility of taking the nomination away from the guy with the most votes. So at some point, you need to decide, what do you actually believe? A lot of people are trying to say, well, Bernie said this and Bernie says this now. I think that they're wildly misstating his position. But regardless, what do you actually believe? Because if Democrats in positions of power across the country are saying when it's convenient we'll overthrow an election, they don't then have any position to stand in when they criticize the Republicans for doing the same thing. And when the future of our democracy is at stake, there can't be any ambiguity. And we can't have a case where one party is determined to kill it and the other sometimes is kind of interested in it and sometimes not. We need an actual defender, and right now it doesn't look to a lot of Americans like we have that. Now, their comments in the emails actually got a little bit worse, a little bit more jokey, so let's move on. In October 2017, after purging more than 500,000 voters from rolls, Mr. Kemp and Mr. Dove emailed on their personal accounts mocking a press release from a Democratic candidate, I believe that's a reference to Stacey Abrams, warning that Georgia, quote, is systematically deleting voters who have done nothing wrong, and that Georgia is trying to make it harder to vote. Mr. Dove forwarded the press release to Mr. Kemp, writing, us, with laughing emojis. Mr. Kemp replied, us, with a smiling emoji, which is like cute if you do it with your spouse about some little bit of news, not if it's you and your campaign manager conspiring to like effectively rig an election against the community.
So what do you do? What do you do now? Like the evidence is right there. Emails have been exposed. And will something happen now? Will there be some kind of motion or some way to oust or keep their feet to the fire from what they've done? No, there's no follow-up. I'm gonna go back as far as 08 when Obama came in, officially 09. And then we're not gonna look backwards, we're gonna look forwards. We're gonna look forwards, not backwards. No matter how much illegality, no matter how much subversion of American democracy they continue to do, it just doesn't matter. They wanna move on because we're worried that the voters don't wanna deal with that anymore. We keep shedding the responsibility for what we need to do to protect our democracy. And then now we find ourselves wrapped up in a situation where it doesn't look very secure. We go, oh man, this is gonna be the hardest election ever to fight to win, even though we have the majority of people on our side. No, they don't need the majority of people on their side. They're cheating, and if you actually say cheating, Fox News might say, oh, here we go again. Stop being concerned about what they're going to say and say the reality. You have proof. It's not even like you're speculating. And when someone challenges you, be like, here, check this out. Let them read it for themselves. When you have the truth on your side, you shouldn't have any reason to be afraid of telling it.
And for them to be held to account, they would have to be prosecuted, and the officials in the state of Georgia would have to take up that case. Yeah. Those officials are likely all conservative Republicans, perhaps appointed by Kemp himself. Highly, highly doubt that that's going to happen.
Yeah, and one of the issues, even if they did that they would run up against is most of this stuff is legal in America. You can shut down polling places in predominantly black areas. You can remove voting booths and flood white areas with tons of booths so there's no waiting list. You can set up the match system that obviously in a discriminatory fashion eliminates generally non-white people at a far higher rate than white individuals. You can do all this stuff. You can purge the voter rolls. You can do that and it's totally legal. And you know why? Because when the Democrats had an opportunity under Obama with a supermajority to pass legislation to protect democracy, they chose not to. Like I guess they had a priority. I feel like you could have gotten a couple things done during that time. But if we win in November, we have got to do it all. Like bare minimum, voter holiday, so that working Americans can go without worrying about losing their jobs or losing pay, having to choose between participating in American democracy and making enough money to feed their kids. Protections against like gerrymandering, voter purges, all of that stuff. Like eliminating the voter ID laws. Like the federal government has to step in because state governments, generally run but not universally run by Republicans, are violating Americans' democratic rights on a daily basis, and it goes back till basically as long as we've been a country.
It's got to be something you mentioned even when it's not brought up. Again, and ask other conservatives, ask other Republicans, hey, what do you think about what Kemp did in Georgia? Hey, what do you think about what Dove did in Georgia? Ask them next year and be like, man, you're still talking about this? Yes, because I'm still upset about our democracy still being at risk. And if you care about it, if people will challenge you, ask them why they don't care about America. Call them un-American. Like the pressure needs to start shifting. And I'm tired of it always being on the folks who actually have the facts on their side. So you can go, well, I have everything right in front of me, but I'm afraid to say it. It's maddening.
Yeah. Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, Jayar. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.